Everybody, and welcome back to A Christmas Carol. Last time you focused on the description and importance of the characters' ignorance and want. This session will focus on the beginning of stave 4, where Scrooge is met by the third and final ghost, the ghost of Christmas yet to come. It'll be a good idea to click on the link that's in your booklet first, because that's a short clip from the Muppets version. If you watch that clip from the beginning up until about 1 minute 30, and that will cover the section of text that we're looking at today. Once you've done that, just think about the appearance alone of the ghost. What does the ghost remind you of? It looks to me like the Grim Reaper. So what we'll do first is read the extract and see how similar it is to the clip. The phantom slowly, gravely, silently approached. When it came near him, Scrooge bent down upon his knee. For in the very air through which this spirit moved, it seemed to scatter gloom and mystery. It was shrouded in a deep black garment which concealed its head, its face, its form, and left nothing of it visible save one outstretched hand. But for this it would have been difficult to detach its figure from the night and separate it from the darkness by which it was surrounded. He felt that it was tall and stately when it came beside him, and that its mysterious presence filled him with a solemn dread. He knew no more, for the spirit neither spoke nor moved. "I am in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come," said Scrooge. The spirit answered not, but pointed onward with its hand. "You are about to show me shadows of the things that have not happened, but will happen in time before us," Scrooge pursued. "Is that so, spirit?" The upper portion of the garment was contracted for an instant in its folds, as if the spirit had inclined its head. That was the only answer he received. Although well used to ghostly company by this time, Scrooge feared the silent shape so much that his legs trembled beneath him, and he found that he could hardly stand when he prepared to follow it. The spirit paused a moment, as observing his condition, and giving him time to recover. But Scrooge was all the worse for this. It thrilled him with a vague, uncertain horror to know that behind the dusky shroud there were ghostly eyes intently fixed upon him, while he, though he stretched his own to the utmost, could see nothing but a spectral hand and one great heap of black. "Ghost of the future!" he exclaimed, "I fear you more than any spectre I have seen. But as I know your purpose is to do me good, and as I hope to live to be another man from what I was, I am prepared to bear your company, and do it with a thankful heart. Will you not speak to me?" It gave him no reply. The hand was pointed straight before them. "Lead on," said Scrooge. "Lead on. The night is waning fast, and it is precious time to me, I know. Lead on, spirit." Okay, so let's now have a look at question 1, which is, how does Dickens describe this spirit, i.e. what methods does Dickens use? First off, if you have a look at the first 2 paragraphs of stave 4, Dickens uses these words, which all link in to the idea of death, a semantic field of death, or the use of death imagery. You have the sensation of death with it being black in darkness and silence. You have the clever use of shrouded, and a shroud is a garment that you wrap up a corpse in before you bury it. But it's also meaning to cover something to make it difficult to see, which makes the figure, much like the future itself, seem unknowable and mysterious, literally shrouded in darkness. The fearful but featureless description creates a sense of dark vagueness, resembling the uncertainty of the future, and how Scrooge's future is really something to fear deeply. Then you have the remains after death of, if you have a look at the adverb gravely, we've got the word grave in there. You've also got spirits and phantom. Now, the noun phantom, the use of this is an interesting one because I think Dickens uses this about 18 times in total across the novella, but for those 18 times, it appears in this stave 16 of those times. So it really has something to do with death in this stave. But the use of the noun phantom is more sinister and frightening than just using the word ghost, and this helps create a sense of continual dread with it, rather than just the idea of a dead person's spirit. Now, the spirits so far have been quite benevolent, glowing, ruddy, childlike, and gentle, and they've guided Scrooge through their visions firmly, but somewhat sympathetically. They've used nostalgia and pity to help Scrooge alter his ways, but this last spirit brings the moral lesson home. It uses fear. The tripartite of adverbs slowly, gravely, silently helps slow the pace and create a graver, more solemn tone. Dickens's use of contrast not only provides a foreboding sense to the Christmases to come for Scrooge, but also emphasises the terror of the future, which aims to shock Scrooge into changing his ways. Notice I've underlined two nouns in this quotation, gloom and mystery, as I want to pick up on the stronger meaning that these two words had in the Victorian era. We use gloom to describe a place that is dark, but it also conveys melancholy, a feeling of profound sadness which is difficult to escape. And mystery isn't just something that we don't know. It is used to mean something that is inexplicable or beyond human comprehension. So using these two together help create an atmosphere of dread or extreme fear for the future. Now, this sense of dread is further enhanced by the silence of the phantom and the outstretched hand that acts as its sole form of communication. It isn't there to exchange pleasantries or to act sympathetically, like the other ghosts. Instead, it is matter of fact and quite demanding, and it will not relent until it is obeyed. It is indicative of the fact that time will continue marching onwards and won't concede to anyone. Alternatively, this could be seen as a cruel to be kind approach, almost like a final test of whether Scrooge fully has what it takes to face up to the error of his ways and learn the tough lesson by himself. Now, let's go on to question 2, which is how does Dickens show that Scrooge is terrified by this ghost? Firstly, Dickens writes that Scrooge bent down upon his knee when it came near to him, showing that the ghost's manner and appearance has affected Scrooge that much that he cannot keep his composure and brings him down. Also, if you picture a pair of animals about to start to fight and one rolls onto their back, this shows a sign of submission. And similarly, Scrooge's behaviour seems submissive, almost like he is so struck with fear that he is now backing down from his previous ways and begging for redemption. Now, this second quotation, where Scrooge feared the silent shape so much that his legs trembled beneath him, and he found that he could hardly stand when he prepared to follow it, just reinforces what we have said for the first quotation. But this shows in no uncertain terms that Scrooge has been shaken to the core, to the point where it is physically affecting him. His inability to stand strong in the face of fate implies that he is still struggling to face his impending fate. Now, this is alluded to earlier when Dickens writes that its mysterious presence filled him with a solemn dread, creating a foreboding atmosphere where Scrooge could be anticipating something truly terrifying that awaits him in the future. Now, the use of the adjective mysterious implies how inexplicable the future is to him, and therefore implies that Scrooge needs to have this lesson of witnessing the fate of himself and others in order to truly change his ways for good. And finally, let's explore how this extract shows how much Scrooge has changed. Towards the end of the extract that we've looked at today, Scrooge tells the ghost that although he fears this ghost the most, he knows that its purpose is to do me good, implying that Scrooge now understands the true reasons behind the ghost's appearances and recognises that their appearances are to improve him. Scrooge also says that he is prepared to bear your company to the ghost, which clearly demonstrates the change he has undergone so far. Think back to the beginning of the novella, and that was where Scrooge asked if he could have all three ghosts at one time. Now, Scrooge is accepting the ghost and welcoming his company. Now, the use of the noun company carries ideas of togetherness, friendship, companionship, implying that Scrooge no longer sees the ghost as an inconvenience, but as a helpful intervention in his life which is lasting. Now, the last quotation of the extract shows how Scrooge is letting the spirit have power and control over him, as he now knows the spirit can bring about the change needed in himself. Dickens uses the repetition of lead on to show how keen and willing Scrooge is in wanting to change, and he can only do that by learning the lesson of what this spirit is going to teach him. Contrast this with Stave 2, with the Ghost of Christmas Past. This first spirit had the authority and power over Scrooge when it demands, "Rise and walk with me." However, Scrooge also forcefully seized the extinguisher cap and by a sudden action pressed it down upon its head. As Scrooge didn't want to see any more of his past, but now Scrooge is telling the ghost to lead on, as he is eager to see what the spirit is going to show him. Now, the other half of the same quotation, where it says, "It is precious time to me," also shows the change in Scrooge. At the beginning of the novella, the miserly businessman Scrooge would see precious time as being time not wasted in making money. However, his precious time now is to take in and use the lessons in which he has learnt from the spirits to make himself a better man. He now recognizes that life and his time on earth is precious. Now that's the end of this session. Hopefully that's given you an understanding of how the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come is presented and how it contrasts with the other spirits, as well as a good idea of how Scrooge reacts to it and how he is showing that he is changing. Next session, you'll continue with Scrooge's travel into the future with this ghost. Until then, take care.